What's up, everyone? This is Bacon, and today is the September tier list. And here you go. Here you can have it. Just one thing. If you look down here, I am covering up Respin and Turtle Man. So if you're wondering where they are, that's where they are. They're hidden behind me. They're really not worth getting into much detail about because they are on the F tier, meaning probably shouldn't build them out unless you just have a ton of copies of them and have a ton of resources. So per usual, I'm going to go over a little description of how these tier lists are made. I'm going to go through and talk about a good amount of the heroes on here. I'm going to go over every single one because it's just not worth it, but I'm going to touch on a lot of them. So these tier lists are made by taking every hero and seeing where they are good at. So basically, let's take Mishka, for example. Mishka is seeing how she's good in campaign, in towers, in Forked Fate, in Dream Realms, Arena, every part of the game, Guild Boss, you name it. And then they're given a rating for every single thing. And so these S tier heroes are basically ones that have scored really high across the board. They got S's in pretty much everything, or maybe like really high S's and like an A+. So that's how they end up here. Same with the A's. A's are generally across the board pretty solid, pretty good heroes. Then once you get to B and lower, you either start to get heroes that are across the board just kind of or below average, or you might have one who's like really good in 2 or 3 areas and then absolute garbage in a few others, and so it kind of evens it out and makes them look kind of average. C is like that normally, but a little more extreme. You might have one area they're really good at and then everything else they're bad at, or they might just be very mediocre in every area. And then F is pretty much they're just garbage in every area. They might have one area where they're somewhat useful, but definitely not worth the attention or the time to build them out. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the tier list. S tier, number 1, we got Trisha. Now, one thing to note is this is in order of their rankings. And so Trisha scored better than Sung Jin Woo. Sung Jin Woo scored better than Awakened Solace, so on. So Trisha, still pretty much the best character in the game. She is just does damage. She cranks it out. She has AoE and single target damage, which is really helpful, really useful. She's also on the Wilder faction, which is just the best faction. So she can be paired up with some pretty solid heroes. Sung Jin Woo kind of made a jump from the last tier list. He is now second highest in the game. So he is definitely a hero. If you have him, you will want to build him out. He is very useful in pretty much every area of the game and has uses by himself. Unlike, where is she? Right here. Chow kind of needs someone, or needs Sung Jin Woo to be paired with her to get the max use. He isn't as reliant on her, which is nice. Next, we got Awakened Solace. If you've been playing for this game for at all, you kind of realize Awakened Solace is pretty busted, pretty strong. And honestly, I think she's probably above these two just because of her passive as Awakened Hero and just the usefulness. I mean, when you get to this point, it's just like debating nitty-gritty stuff. It doesn't really matter, but just an FYI, because I know some people are like, how is an Awakened Hero not the top? She probably is the best hero in the game still. Taylene has just kind of slowly progressed and been known as like the best celestial in the game. She has a ton of uses. I would say S tier Taylene is a fully built out Taylene. There's kind of 2 areas you can go with Taylene where you fully build her out, or you can basically keep her at a 1 copy, and that's really, there's no in between. S tier Taylene is going to be fully built out, maxed out item, the whole shebang. Shal tier continues to be useful in a lot of parts of the game, campaign, PvP, etc. Dimensional Hero, if you don't have her from the event, unfortunately you can't get her. Mira is the best Graveborn in the game. She is also just very useful across the board. Marcel, same thing. She is a good damage hero, has a cheat death similar to Shaltir. Dimensional Hero. Leica is S tier. I'm still surprised with how high Leica is. I like Leica a lot. But I don't know. She just doesn't feel as good as she used to. Maybe she just isn't as good late game, but she's still cranking up on the S tier. She does provide buffing, so even if she's not doing a lot of anything else, she does get that buffing, which is really nice. We got Awakened Brutus. Basically Brutus, but way, way better. Does damage, has CC, tankiness, the whole thing. The best Mauler in the game, and there's really no competition to that. He is just the best flat out. Mishka, tanky, CC, does some damage. He's great. And then Laos, dimensional hero, pairs really well with Marcel. Add some tankiness as you build him out. He's a fun hero. I got him to Mythic, and I'm excited to get him to even farther eventually. Now we're going to A tiers. These are heroes that I think are still just as good as other heroes, but might just be kind of not quite on that level of S tier. First, we got Navanthi. She's the healer for Wilders. She is just probably the best healer in the game, besides maybe Awakened Solace, but she's just annoying to go against. If you're going against a maxed out Navanthi, it is just a pain in the butt to kill the team because of all the healing she cranks out. Gwyneth is the light bearer who just keeps on giving. She's a hero that gets really strong and once you build her out, and she just continues to be really strong late game, which is really nice. Albedo is basically a big buffer for dimensional heroes. If you build her out with her item, she can make dimensional heroes very strong. She's a core piece of dimensional teams. Scarlet is a hero that is kind of, she went from S tier to A tier, and that is because her rankings kind of finally set in. And S tier was kind of where I was putting her, but she's pretty close. I put her low S, high A's, pretty much the same thing. I would say Scarlet's just a better version of Belinda. She is a light bearer damage hero. She can do good damage to single targets and normal 5 comp teams. She's just a good hero. She takes some investment to really get the best bang, but I think she's a hero that will continue to be used for a while once you build her out. Rowan, great support hero, will probably be that way for a while. Same with Rosalina, except Rosalina is really good paired with heroes like Scarlet, like Gwyneth, like Belinda. Yeah, basically heroes that depend on their ultimate. She pairs really well with them. And that will be a comp or a build that is going to be useful forever, in my opinion. So she's going to be good forever. So if you're wanting to build her out, I would say it's not a bad thing. Belinda, like I said, is just kind of a slightly worse version of Scarlet. If you happen to have her built out and not Scarlet, it's not a big deal. But if you can choose between the two, I'd probably pick Scarlet. Mortis, great support hero. You only need 1 copy to get the best bang out of him. Same with the twins, good support. You'd only need 1 copy for them as well. Awakened Taylene. Awakened Taylene received a buff. I think she's realistically probably in the S tier, but she's just so hard to get. I think she deserves to be in the A tier just for that reason. She's a pain in the butt to get. You need 5 Celestials Ascended. And I feel like if you're getting 5 Celestials Ascended, you're probably getting Taylene maxed out. And so having both of them might not be as useful since you can't put them together, but I don't have her. I don't have that many Celestials that are Ascended, so can't really speak too much more into that. Next, we got Chow. I don't remember her whole name. I think it's Chow's in it. She jumped up a bit. I think I had her in B+ last tier list, but now that we've kind of seen her usefulness, she's definitely more useful than I originally thought. I was a little down on her, but she's definitely cranking out some damage. She kind of is in that high A tier. Paired with Sung Jin Woo, she does really well. She's a hero that definitely is worth building out after Sung Jin Woo if you have her. A lot of AoE damage, consistent damage, that type of hero. Audrey is a really good damage hero. They are one where 1 copy early on can be really useful. The 1 copy isn't quite as useful later in the game, but still can be useful. If you build him out, he's just going to do a bunch of damage, and that's fine. I don't think he's anything special or crazy, but I do think he's a really fun hero. That if you have the resources and the money or whatever, it's not going to hurt you to build him out. Crassio is probably my favorite Mauler hero besides Awakened Brutus. He takes not a super ton of investment, just about level 10 signature item. And he can really crank out some damage. If you get him maxed out, he can really crank damage out, but isn't necessary. Mahira is another one-cost hero. You don't need to build her up much after that, but you can if you want. It's not going to really hurt you too much if you build her out. Sanja is a really great early to mid-game light bearer hero. I remember when I first started playing Companions, everyone had Sanja, and I didn't. And I was just like, man, I feel like I'm missing out because every time I'm trying to clear a wave in campaign, people use Sanja, and I didn't have her. But she's a good early game hero. Definitely would recommend. Arthur, now that he's in the shop, I'm going to guess he's going to be more common. Definitely worth buying those pieces for him to build him out. Good buffer, good tanky hero. Overall, just a good solid tanky boy. That also buffs his team's crit and damage and stuff. Salaki, and honestly at this point I'm shocked I've gotten all these names right. Salaki, good buffer, a little bit of damage hero for maulers. Damon, early game, mid game, fine Graveborn. Silas, probably the best Graveborn healer in the game and buffer. Ainz is a hero who came out with Shaltir and Albedo. Of the three, definitely the least useful, the least good. But if you build him out all the way, and I mean all the way, like max everything, he can be pretty solid, but takes a lot of investment. And if you don't have him, there's no point. You can't get him. Flora is actually a surprising hero that's been doing a good amount of damage when you build her out. With one copy, she can be useful in certain situations. But I like Flora a lot. I like her flying above and kind of not being killable for a little bit. Shamira is someone who was really popular early on, but kind of falls off. I think Odin here is going to replace her eventually. I think Odin, and I'll talk about what these blue rectangles mean in a second, but I think Odin is probably better to invest in than Shamira. Chicken Man, good mauler hero. Good CC, solid damage if you build him out. Scrag, tanky boy, has some CC. And then now we have these ones. So you can see I've made a little poorly drawn rectangle in these batches of heroes. And what these are, this is basically they're still kind of being tested and not fully built out. The results aren't fully in. But this is where I think they would probably be if I were to place them. So this is kind of like a, don't get your hopes up too much, but this is my educated guess. Odin, I think, is A. I think he could be high A, mid A. Shafia, I think that's how you say her name. I haven't used her a lot, but I've seen some testing. I've messed with her with the trial, and I think she has potential to be a really good mauler hero. Especially since Mauler is pretty weak. I think she'll have more value than other heroes in other factions because of how weak Maulers are. But she's some good damage. And I think Maulers are really lacking some good, consistent magic damage. Leonardo, I just think he'll be similar to Arthur, where he'll be a good dimensional hero that's nice to have, but maybe isn't going to be game-changing. I think he will be really solid for campaign and Forked Fate. Oh, this is the first one. I'm just like, I don't remember his name. I'm going to call him Zeus. Zeus, Lightning Man. Can crank out some damage if you really build him out. Dream Realm is okay at one copy. I don't think he's really worth building out. Same with Khazard. Khazard is one of my favorite heroes. He's so cool, but I can't convince myself to build him because of just not as useful as other heroes. But Khazard, I think, is a really solid hero when you build him out. Not really a hero where you're going to do much with him at one copy after you get out of the early game. Now we're going to B tier. B tier, like I said, these heroes are basically heroes that I think have very niche areas, or they're about average across the board. Rain, really good against single target battles. Think bosses, some Dream Realm, guild boss, stuff like that. Numazu, is that the right hero? Is a healer for Maulers. That's really all he does, is a lot of healer, sustaining. So in areas where that is really helpful, it's really nice. But just doesn't thrive elsewhere, really. Tassie is a hero where certain areas she's really good. So she can be really useful in campaign, tower, stuff like that. But then like guild boss, most dream realms, she's just kind of pretty horrendous, honestly. Athalia can be really solid in PvP and a few other areas, but takes a ton of investment and is also just not great in other areas. Thane is like a guild boss slayer. He absolutely cranks damage in guild boss, especially if you build him out all the way. A ridiculous amount of damage, but he's not really worth building out just for that, especially since you can basically max damage guild boss and max reward guild boss without building him out. Hodgkin is a good tanky boy for Graveborns, has some debuffing in his kit, little bit of damage, and he doesn't really take a lot of investment besides getting his stars up, which is nice. Signature item isn't very important for him. Now we turn to Gretzel, who's very similar to Hodgkin, where he's kind of like decent across the board. I think Gretzel is a little bit better overall, but he takes a lot of investment. I would say probably max signature item if you want to really get some damage out of him. And unfortunately, for the amount of investment he requires, he's not that good. Now we got these guys. Similar to these ones up here, this is my guess. They'll probably end up somewhere in B. I think Walker we're seeing some really good damage in Dream Realm. I've messed with him a little bit in those areas, and he's does some surprising damage. I remember when he even had his trial, I was doing some stuff with him, and he's a little surprising. He can do some damage. I'm curious to see how he does in other areas. Oscar just came out very early on. I think he could be a good counter for a few things in PvP and a few other areas, but ultimately I think he'll probably be low B, high C. 8 arms. 8 arms Celestial. I think he'll probably be around B. I don't have much thoughts about him. Decent support. Probably not worth building. Raku. He's a weird hero where you don't really want to max him out, because once you max him out, it affects how useful he is in a few other areas. And so, I don't know. He's just not, with how good Wilders are, I just don't think he's really worth doing much with. And now we got the 4 hypos here. I don't know what to do with these. I don't really know much. I just know when they're max built, they're probably decent, especially with the hypogene buffs. So I think if you were to max these guys out, they'd be probably right around B. Maybe they'd be a little higher, maybe a little lower. I wouldn't recommend building these guys out unless you have a ton of money. C tier, I'm not going to go over all these heroes, but I'm going to talk about some noticeables. Orthos, really good in PvP and maybe 1 or 2 other areas, but not great in the other areas. And he also takes a ton of investments. Probably not worth it. Brutus is just a 1 copy wonder. He can be really useful in certain situations early game, but as you get farther in the game, he just becomes less and less necessary. Isabella is pretty good in a few Dream Realms and Guild Boss, but requires some investment, and outside those areas, not really great in anything else. Lucretia, the one I really thought was going to be like a great hypogene, like that first hypogene that was just busted, because she was really busted in Classic, but she just, with there not being a hypogene tower and with just her having some tweaks, she's just not as useful, unfortunately. Wouldn't recommend building her out. Warwick is a hero where you can get a lot of value with 1 copy in Dream Realms and Guild Boss. But outside of that, not a lot of use. I am starting to build him out because I think even though he's really valuable just 1 copy, I think he can have a ton of value in Dream Realm with more built into him. So I'm starting to build him out. So he's definitely one of those heroes where, like, if you have a lot of heroes already built out and you're looking for a few more people to invest in, he could be one to consider. Titus, niche, Dream Realm stuff, not really worth it. And then all these F tiers, I mean, Nara is simply used for her hook. If there's a time when you need to pull someone's damage, you could use her. It doesn't always work, depending on the hero. And honestly, these heroes are all pretty garbage. Wukong is the only Celestial in here. Wukong's pretty garbage. Maybe he'd be in C tier, fully built out, but not really anything special. Respin is maybe useful in one area of the game, and by useful I mean could be okay. But besides that, I wouldn't recommend building these unless you're trying to increase the star level on an awakened hero. Then that's perfectly fine. I have a few of these people maxed out just to try to get my awakened Solace fully built. But besides that, not worth investing stuff into their signature items and stuff like that. But that is the September tier list. Not a ton has changed, but there have been a few up and down movements. And hopefully next one in October, we'll have a little more information on some of these blue rectangle guys. I wouldn't have any hopes for the Hypogenes just because no one's really testing these guys out because they're so expensive. But we might have some more information on these guys. If you have your Sujan Wu, forgot his name, definitely build him out. If you are unsure about investing in a signature item, I already have it at 20. I'm debating 30. 30 is not necessary, but just for the extra splash of damage, or I don't even remember what it does, but a little extra splash of something. We'll see. But this is the September tier list, guys. Hopefully it's helpful. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel. And as always, make sure you like and subscribe below and have a great rest of your day. Peace.